We've talked about a lot of musicians. Who do you enjoy? You mentioned Adele, seeing her perform, hanging out with her.
Yeah, I mean, she's extraordinary. Her voice is unreal. So she is, I find her to be so talented, and she's so unique in that 3-year-olds love her music. She was actually the first concert Arabella ever went to at Madison Square Garden when she was around 4, and 90-year-olds love her music. And that's pretty rare to have that kind of bandwidth of resonance. So I think she's so talented. We actually just saw her. I took all 3 kids in Las Vegas around a month ago. Alice Johnson, whose case I had worked with in the White House. My father commuted her sentence. Her case was brought to me by a friend, Kim Kardashian, and she came to the show. We all went together with some mutual friends, and that was like a very profound. It was amazing to see Adele, but it was a very profound experience for me to have with my kids, because she rode with us in the car on the way to the show, and she talked to my kids about her experience and her story, and how her case found its way to me. And I think for young children, it's very abstract, policy. And so for her to be able to share with them this was a very beautiful moment, and led to a lot of really incredible conversations with each of my kids about our time in service, because, they gave up a lot for me to do it. Actually, Alice told them the most beautiful story about the plays she used to put on in prison, how these shows were like the hottest ticket in town. Like, you could not get into them. They always extended their run. But for the people who were in them, a lot of those men and women had never experienced applause. Nobody had ever shown up at their games or at their plays and clapped for them. And the emotional experience of just being able to give someone that, being able to stand and applaud for someone, and how meaningful that was. And she was showing us pictures from these different productions, and it was a beautiful moment. Alice actually, after her sentence was commuted and she came out of prison, together we worked on 23 different pardons or commutations. So the impact of her experience, and how she was able to take her opportunity and create that same opportunity for others who were deserving, and who she believed in, was very beautiful. So anyway, that was an extraordinary concert experience for my kids to be able to have that moment.
What a story. So just that's the sort of the
And then here we are dancing at Adele.
Exactly. It's like that turning point.
6 years later, it was almost to the day. 6 years later.
So that policy, that meeting of the minds, resulted in a major turning point in her life and Alice's life, and now you're dancing with Adele.
And now we're at Adele.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned also I've seen commutations where it's an opportunity to step in and consider the ways that the justice system does not always work well. Like in cases when it's nonviolent crime and drug offenses, there's a case of a person you mentioned that received a life sentence for selling weed.
Yeah.
And it's just the number. It's like hundreds of thousands of people are in the federal prison and jail in the system for selling drugs. That's the only thing, with no violence on their record whatsoever. And it's obviously there's a lot of complexity. There's the details matter, but oftentimes the justice system does not do right in the way we think right is. And it's nice to be able to step in and help people, and direct.
They're overlooked and they have no advocate. Jared, and I helped in a small way on his effort, but he really spearheaded the effort on criminal justice reform through the First Step Act, which was an enormously consequential piece of legislation that gave so many people another opportunity. And that was amazing. So working with him closely on that was a beautiful thing for us to also experience together. But in the final days of the administration, you're not getting legislation passed. And anything you do administratively is going to be probably overturned by an incoming administration. So, how do you use that time for maximum results? And I really dug in on pardons and commutations that I thought were we're overdue and we're worthy. And my last night in Washington, D.C., the gentleman you mentioned, Corvin, I was on the phone with his mother at 12:30 in the morning, telling her that her son would be getting out the next day. So, and it felt really, it's one person, but you see with Alice, like the ripple effect of, the commutation granted to her and her ability and the impact she'll have within her family with her grandkids. And now she's an advocate for so many others who are voiceless. It felt like the perfect way to end 4 years, to be able to call those parents and call those kids in some cases and give them the news that a loved one was coming home.